In 2 decades, the F-22 Raptor has been the undisputed apex predator of the skies. It is a kinematic monster, an aircraft that bends the laws of aerodynamics and simply disappears from enemy radar screens. But if a war breaks out in the Indo-Pacific tomorrow, the greatest fighter jet ever built has a massive, fatal problem. The King is getting old. It's half-blind in modern combat, and frankly, it can't fly far enough to reach the fight without ruining its greatest advantage. But the U.S. Air Force isn't letting their ultimate fighter go quietly into the night. On 2026 Air and Space Forces Association's Annual Warfare Symposium, Lockheed Martin pulled the curtain back on a radical, desperate, and brilliant redesign. They are calling it Raptor 2.0. It features stealthy fuel tanks, advanced infrared pods, and something more. Today, we are looking at this 2.0 of the Raptor. Why was the F-22 built with these massive flaws in the first place? How exactly does this new hardware change the lethal math of the jet? And with a fleet size that is dangerously small, is this upgrade actually enough to hold a line against a rapidly modernizing near-peer threat? The F-22 was born out of the Advanced Tactical Fighter program. The conceptual studies for this jet actually began way back in 1971. Its mission was brutal and simple: achieve absolute air superiority over the European theater. The Pentagon wanted a jet that could take off from West Germany or the UK, punch into the heavily contested airspace of the Fulda Gap, and completely dismantle waves of Soviet fighters. Because of this hyper-focus on Europe, extreme range wasn't priority, and the Air Force didn't demand deep multi-role capabilities either. The F-22 wasn't designed to be a bomb truck. It was designed to be a dedicated assassin. To meet these requirements, Lockheed engineers opted for an incredibly tight, compact design. In fact, the F-22 is currently the shortest twin-engine fifth-generation fighter in the world. Its internal weapons bays were dimensioned just precisely enough to hold AIM-1 20 air-to-air missiles without wasting an inch of extra space. This strict limitation on physical size brought massive aerodynamic benefits. You take an incredibly slick airframe, keep the empty weight around 19 tons, and strap 2 Pratt and Whitney engines producing 70,000 pounds of combined thrust to it, you get a fighter whose super cruise and post-all maneuverability remain unmatched to this day. When the Raptor entered service in 2005, the generational gap was so massive the U.S. Air Force thought their supremacy was unshakable. But in military engineering, every advantage requires a compromise. And the F-22's Cold War compromises were about to collide with a 21st century geopolitical reality. Fast forward to today, the strategic landscape has fundamentally shifted. China is now mass-producing the J-20 stealth fighter. These peer adversaries benefited from the latecomer advantage. They designed their jets with modern avionics, deeper weapons bays, and crucially, much longer legs. In the European theater, a short, unrefueled combat radius wasn't a deal-breaker. But the primary theater of the 21st century is the Indo-Pacific. And the Pacific doesn't care about your maneuverability. It cares about your fuel gauge. To fly across the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean, Raptors are forced to carry massive 600-gallon external drop tanks. We see this all the time. But here's the problem. These legacy drop tanks are completely non-stealthy. They are giant metal cylinders that light up enemy radar screens like a Christmas tree. The old doctrine dictated that a Raptor pilot would fly toward the combat zone, spot the enemy, and then jettison the tanks and pylons to instantly regain their clean stealth configuration before engaging. But against modern anti-access and area denial networks, popping up on radar, even for a few minutes hundreds of miles away, gives away your vector and ruins the element of surprise. And then there's a second major flaw. The F-22 is half-blind. Because the Raptor's nose is so tightly packed with its massive APG-77 radar, there was simply no internal physical space to retrofit a modern infrared search and track system. In an era of stealth-on-stealth combat, turning on your active radar is like shining a flashlight in a dark room. You might see the enemy, but everyone else instantly sees exactly where you are. Modern air combat relies heavily on passive infrared sensors to quietly detect the heat signatures of enemy jets. The F-35 has it, the J-20 has it, the Su-57 has it. The F-22 does not. It was heading into the 2020 short on gas and blind in the infrared spectrum. This brings us to the Raptor 2.0 upgrade package. Lockheed Martin and the Air Force have developed a brilliant, highly expensive set of external modifications to fix the jet's internal space problems. First up is the fuel issue. Lockheed has developed the LDTP, the low drag tank and pylon system. Unlike the old, rounded drop tanks, the LDTP tanks are heavily faceted, featuring sharp angles and a chiseled aerodynamic profile. This does two things. It significantly reduces aerodynamic drag, and more importantly, it dramatically reduces the radar cross-section. Lockheed Martin states that an F-22 equipped with these LDTP tanks can fly at supersonic speeds and perform high-G combat maneuvers without dropping them. If the Raptor is facing an adversary with a less sophisticated air defense network, they can take the jet directly into the merge and fight with the tank still attached. Of course, if absolute maximum stealth is required, smart pneumatic technology allows the jet to cleanly eject the pylon and tank together, instantly restoring the Raptor's perfectly smooth stealth profile. The tactical implications? Massive. On internal fuel alone, the F-22's combat radius is roughly 460 nautical miles. By carrying two LDTP tanks into contested airspace, that radius extends to nearly 700 nautical miles. This heavily reduces the F-22's reliance on highly vulnerable aerial refueling tankers. But what about the sensor problem? Look at the outer underwing hardpoints on this new model. Sitting outboard the fuel tanks are a pair of Stealthy sensor pods. Look closely at the front, and you'll see a golden-tinted optical window, highly reminiscent of the EOTS found on the F-35. By placing these sensors in low observable external pods, the F-22 finally gains the ability to passively hunt stealth targets via their thermal signatures. Stealth jets might have a microscopic radar signature, but its engines still burn at thousands of degrees. With these pods, the F-22 can detect, track, and fire an AIM-1 20D missile at an adversary without ever turning its radar on. Furthermore, these pods feature open architecture modularity. Today, it's an IRSD module. Tomorrow, that same pod shell could house an advanced electronic warfare jammer. On paper, Raptor 2.0 sounds like the ultimate silver bullet, but in real world, hardware is only half the story. The other half is inventory, logistics, and readiness. And this is where the Raptor 2.0 dream collides with a brutal, skeletal reality. Here is a tragedy of American defense procurement. In 2011, the Pentagon made the highly controversial decision to permanently shut down the F-22 production line. There are roughly 185 F-22s in the entire U.S. inventory, but you cannot send 185 Raptors to war. Out of that total, around 35 jets are early batch Block 20 aircraft. They are stripped-down versions used exclusively for training. The Air Force has been begging Congress to let them retire these hangar queens to free up funding for the Raptor 2.0 upgrades, but Congress has repeatedly blocked the retirement. This means the true combat-coded inventory of the U.S. Air Force is roughly 150 jets. That is the absolute maximum number that can receive the Raptor 2.0 upgrade. But the math gets worse. No fighter fleet has a 100% readiness rate. The F-22 is notoriously maintenance-heavy, requiring specialized climate-controlled hangars to preserve its stealth coatings. Historically, the F-22 fleet hovers around a 50% mission-capable rate. If a major conflict erupts in the Pacific tomorrow, the U.S. Air Force might only be able to instantly generate 75 to 80 fully upgraded, combat-ready Raptor 2.0s to cover an area of operations that spans millions of square miles. When you are facing an adversary like China, which is churning out dozens of J-20s every single year, scale matters. The American pilot in a Raptor 2.0 might be the deadliest entity in the sky. But in a war of attrition, if a Raptor is shot down or crashes due to a mechanical failure, it is gone forever. There is no replacement coming off an assembly line. You lose one, the fleet permanently shrinks. The Raptor 2.0 upgrade is an engineering marvel. It is a testament to the brilliance of the American defense industry, taking a 1980s blueprint and strapping 2030s technology onto it. The low drag tanks and advanced sensor pods patch the two most glaring, fatal flaws of the F-22, allowing it to remain the apex predator for another decade. But we have to view this objectively. This is a stopgap measure. It is a highly expensive band-aid applied to an aging, irreplaceable airframe, even fully upgraded. The F-22 cannot physically transform into a sixth-generation fighter. Its internal payload, power generation, and cooling capacities are maxed out. The Air Force knows the Raptor's days are ultimately numbered, which is why the sixth-generation NGAD program is so critical. The Raptor 2.0 doesn't have to win the war of 2050. Its job is to hold the line, deter aggression in the Pacific today, and buy enough time for the true sixth-generation replacements to take to the skies. The undisputed king is getting older, but with these new claws, nobody should be eager to step into the ring with it just yet. What do you guys think? Is the Raptor 2.0 upgrade enough to maintain American air dominance in the Pacific? Or did the U.S. make a fatal, irreversible mistake when they shut down the production line in 2011? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below.